The Creed series is probably one of the better spin-off franchises in recent cinematic history. In fact, the films both work as spin-offs and sequels to the Rocky movies and star Michael B. Jordan as the young upstart boxer Adonis Creed, i.e. the son of the famous boxer Apollo Creed, who was important in the original series of Rocky movies before he ultimately died in the ring. And due to that, Adonis is a character that is obsessed with legacy. After all, Adonis desires to be a great boxer and live up to his father's storied and legendary career. He wants to be the champ and all of that. And in the first two Creed movies, he does just that. With Rocky in his corner, Adonis becomes one of the best fighters in the world. In fact, he just has the uncanny ability to strategically bludgeon his opponents. He's really good at punching people in the fucking face. Because when it comes to the human demolition hill, Adonis is on top. But with that said, in the Rocky cinematic universe, these events happened years ago, which makes us wonder what happens to Adonis now that he is a bit older. Now that he has established his own legendary legacy apart from his father, what is left for Adonis to do? And that's honestly the question that is at the forefront of Creed 3, the recently released Michael B. Jordan directed third entry in the Creed series that is overall a pretty damn good boxing movie that matches the franchise's cinematic quality and advances the Creed saga's overall storyline, especially when it comes to themes of legacy. See, Creed 3, like the first two movies, is about that aforementioned legacy. In fact, at the beginning of Creed 3, Adonis retires and is content to rest on his laurels, and in the few years since his retirement, he happily supports the endeavors of his music-producing wife Bianca, lovingly dotes on his daughter Amara, and trains and promotes the next generation of elite boxers. And with that, he is content to ride out his boxing career into the sunset. But things change when Adonis's childhood friend Damien is released from prison. Damien, who is played by Jonathan Majors, which, quick aside, yes, I'm aware of Majors' recent arrest and the domestic violence allegations against him, but it's something that I'm going to be discussing in a future video rather than this one. We are just focusing on Creed 3 as a movie today. Had dreams and aspirations of becoming a legendary boxer and even a world champion, but those dreams were cut short due to his incarceration. His own legacy became unfulfilled, but now that he is free and despite being older, Damien still pursues this dream. After all, he is still built like a brick shithouse and has a mean right hook that can ruin a high school senior's yearbook photo. And thus Damien asks Adonis to set him up with a fight with the young world champion boxer Felix Chavez, i.e. one of the boxers under Adonis's wing, which is something that makes Adonis feel conflicted. After all, Damien is a childhood friend who had his dreams snatched from him, akin to a stingy substitute teacher confiscating Pokemon cards back in the 1990s. But with that said, can Adonis really give Damien, an unproven older boxer with no following to speak of, a chance at a heavyweight title? Can Adonis help his old friend? It's a good question, and one that is at the heart of Creed 3. Adonis's internal conflict regarding Damien makes for some quality cinema. Even beyond the fact that Jordan and Majors have electric chemistry, Creed 3 juxtaposes these two characters against one another and executes on that aforementioned juxtaposition fairly well. On the one side, we see an Adonis who has lived his dream. He has established his legacy in the ring, he has a beautiful wife, he has a loving daughter, and he has an awesome, really kick-ass, swanky house. He accomplished what he set out to do as a child, because as stated before, this movie, and by extension the rest of the Creed series, is about legacy. But on the other side, you have Damien, someone whose dreams were never fully realized, dreams that were stolen from him by the criminal justice system, all for a crime that was ultimately not his fault. Damien never became a legendary boxer. He didn't get to live his dream in the way that Adonis lived his. He never got to establish his own legacy. And due to this, Damien is trying to make up for lost time. And that's interesting because it just shows the human cost of what prison can take away from someone. It displays what can be lost, and Creed 3 does a good job here. Admittedly though, this juxtaposition does run into a problem. See, despite Damien being sympathetic, he is overall the movie's antagonist, meaning that in his efforts to set up a big title fight against Felix, Damien undertakes less than ethical actions and even goes so far as to insult Adonis's legacy, which is something that puts Damien into the villain role. And I'm honestly kind of conflicted on this because on the one hand, structurally speaking, the movie is doing what it needs to do in order to set up a big epic third act fight between Adonis and Damien, because despite Damien being sympathetic, the movie requires the audience to root for Adonis more when the two exchange anime-style haymakers, because obviously Michael B. Jordan be a weeb. But on the flip side, Creed 3 is yet another movie that puts an ex-con in the villain role, something that kind of undermines Damien's arc a little bit, most because Damien represents the human cost of imprisonment and how being being an ex-con means that there is a stigma associated with him. Yet even though the movie acknowledges this, it still positions him as the antagonist opposing Adonis. He is still the villain, because despite being understandable, Damien doesn't overcome the stigma of being the bad guy. With that being said though, Creed 3 is overall a good movie. It is a fun boxing film that has interesting themes about living one's dream and how imprisonment can take someone's life away from them. And while sure the movie might stumble a bit by ultimately portraying the sympathetic ex-con as the bad guy, Creed 3 is an enjoyable boxing movie. It ultimately lives up to the Creed series' cinematic legacy. And with that, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like rating, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and leave a comment telling me what you think of Creed 3. Also, please consider checking out my Patreon page. $1 a month gets you onto this credit sequence, and $5 a month allows you to make a quick review and impressions requests. The link to my Patreon is in the description. And speaking of Patreon, I just want to thank my patrons, particularly my high tier ones in Samantha Devlin, Mom, and Morrigan. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. Love y'all.